All right, thank you. So old business, project post-closing affidavit update, where are we with that, Rose?
Um, so I want to follow up, a couple of the projects did not send us back their information. So because it was discussed at audit last time, I figured I would come back to audit, but I imagine that you want them to go to governance. One of them was Pods, Marlboro. The other one sent back their information, but I don't have like a real update yet because because of what it said is they had 60 days to then send payment.
Yeah.
It hasn't been the 60 days since the deadline of when they sent the stuff in. So August 31st, they have to send us their payment, and so there are a few that owe money still. Henry Stout was the only one that did it, was compliant, and sent payment.
Right.
And then Pods hasn't sent back all their any information.
So do we have this as a receivable in the financials? I don't remember seeing. Have we posted this yet as a receivable? Or
No, because I don't have all the information. So they
oh, you don't even know what they owe us?
No,
they
Pods
haven't
didn't
said
send a
anything.
thing. I have no idea what their total project cost was.
What was the deadline to have that to us?
Well, they're supposed to send it to us, I want to say 60 days or so after it didn't say. That's what we ended up changing.
Right.
The post-closing affidavit didn't say, and they should have followed up and done it because it's part of their closing documents, but they didn't do it. Because of the change in staff and everything, we didn't know that stuff didn't happen until we did year-end reporting and found oh, this project's completed because we don't have Loki Brill on site saying our project's completed.
Right. We changed
So
our
now we
policy as
gave
well.
them, we started asking them last November. Then we gave them a hard deadline of June 30th because it was wait a few months and do it again. So they've not complied for June 30th. Their attorney did reach out to me about the possibility of coming back for another pilot because they plan to expand the warehouse, and I said that they can't come back until they send the revised the project closing affidavit.
So is this something we ask Joe to send them a letter?
Or we could ask Joe to send them a letter, and then if they don't respond by X date, we could send them to the governance
Yes.
committee for
Yep. I think that's right.
fines.
My suggestion would the same route that we took with people who were out of compliance.
Yep.
Goes to government. Joe sends a letter, goes to governance,
Yep.
and if they don't comply, they put back on the tax rolls.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the ones
Clawback.
that owe payment, assuming, because I could wait, but I could ask you now, it's due next week. So if they send payment, great, fine, I'll have that update for you, but if they don't send payment, I'll follow the same protocol and have Joe send them a letter.
Yeah.
And
Who's this?
give them a certain date
What project?
that didn't send payment.
Yeah.
The one off the top of my head is Saugerty's Hospitality. I can never keep the hotel name straight, but it's
right.
the Holiday Inn Express in Saugerty.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Yeah, I think if people miss deadlines.
Yeah, they need to be informed immediately.
Yeah, so now, as a matter of practice, we are keeping track of projects that are going, and we'll be sure as soon as Innis is done to send us them. Brooklyn Bottling had sent theirs back, but I'm waiting for their audited financial statements. They just didn't have them yet, which is understandable because their year just closed.
Right, and then moving forward, we'll
But
have
they
60
sent
days.
payment, they
due.
sent their affidavit, they did everything they were supposed to. So we're doing a better job now, it's just that this happened because of the staff
Right.
changeover.
Okay, and then we have the 60-day now moving forward
Yes,
with all
now
the
we do,
projects. Okay, all right, yeah,
That's why we
sounds good.
buttoned it up.
We buttoned it up,
Yeah.
we did. Thanks, Rose.
Yeah.
And then the UHY audit update?
I just got an email back from Matt at UHY, and he wanted to set up a time to talk to go over the issues with the billing and also to start planning for next year's audit. So I just wanted to make sure that I kept you all on top of what was going on.
All right, so we've not come to agreement, they know that we're not paying above
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
amount that they gave us in the initial,
Yep, so he just wanted to talk on the phone instead of just via email,
okay.
so.
So have they accepted that then?
I don't know.
Basically accepted
I don't know. I
That's
just
what
got
the
the email on
conversation is.
Monday.
Yeah.
So I
Okay,
will let you know. But it's just a quick update. I just wanted to keep you
and
posted.
then part of that is we want the contract changed, that it's not, they have to call us
Yes.
if any change in what
Right.
they
Yeah,
propose
so the
costs,
board
not significant.
Right.
the word
the
out.
board voted that
Right.
we can't even, I can't even pay them
Yep.
until they agree to that,
Yes, exactly,
so.
and we changed the language, okay, thank you. And you haven't scheduled it yet, they just called you this week.
Yeah, they emailed me Monday, I
Okay.
didn't have time yesterday.
All right, great, thank you. All right. New business, second quarter, administrative staff time. I need a motion to approve staff time.
I'll make that motion to approve the staff time.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Page 11, second quarter review, financial review, if you can take some time to look at the numbers and the review. Motion to pass.
It's kind of like an I know Rick has talked about at the board meetings, it's kind of interesting, when you look at like the percentages, because all of our projects that will end up closing before year end, so it'll be a drastically different picture after the, third quarter. I believe everybody's planning to close in fourth quarter, Afaria, hopefully Romeo, and, obviously the Kingstonian.
Okay. Do we have reason to believe that those the latter two projects will actually close at the end of the fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they have incentives to do so.
Okay.
Besides that, Rick and I know we had touched on it again at the board meeting, last week, was the administrative staff time is, that percentage is wrong. The administrative staff time is just about halfway. It's actually lower than where we were last year at this point. And then everything else, I mean, there's nothing different than what we've gone over for January through June.
If I recall, did we increase the staff time to reflect the increase in activity so that that's
We've
why it's
not-
also under
No,
budget from last year? No.
we've not done that yet. Yeah, and when Rick and I were going over the budget, I'm not sure that it'll be necessary. Because we knew this year was gonna be a heavier year.
It looks as well as good as it does, because you remember with the PPE loans that we were giving out, or grants, we decided that the work associated with that on Rose's part went to the PPE line instead of to the administrative
Right.
staff line. So we just made an internal transfer there to reflect the amount of work, it was about $30,000 if I remember, specific to that project and
Yeah,
charge
but not
it
in
to
Makes
that.
sense.
2021,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So just the
part of
cost
it,
of
yeah.
So
implementing the program.
We didn't need to make any
versus
change, and going forward, we decided, we'll say not to make any changes for next year either, unless we anticipated huge numbers of projects that's gonna eat up a lot of time, and we know we're gonna get more.
Yeah.
But we think there's enough in there, and we won't have
Yeah.
to increase it
It's-
enormously.
It's interesting to me that it's not higher because it was higher last year. And we obviously have a lot more projects than we've
Yeah.
had in the past, but
That was primarily Kingstonian.
Kingstonian was a lot of time. I know I think it was $20,000 or
Yeah.
so worth of time. And then we've obviously worked hard on like efficiencies because now we've been doing it for over 2 years. So
One thing,
processes
may
are
not
faster.
be for order, probably should have chatted when we were meeting up. We'd always talked about scanning all of the docs that are sitting in your office in those boxes that used to sit among. Did we ever get to that or deal with that?
No, you were looking for,
And we
I
never
couldn't
got
find
it.
an
we couldn't
intern.
find an intern to
So
do
we
it.
should talk about that. You and I should talk about how to handle that and just make a decision to get it scanned, because it's sitting there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something that could be done with the extra staff time. I also have a couple other ideas I wanted to go over with Jimmy, about the extra staff time for things that I really would like to see done. For example, and I thought I would talk about it in the governance committee meeting today, but it's relevant to what we're discussing here, was like, we did that mentoring program, like that Q&A.
Yep.
We were gonna send it to a marketing company to make it look pretty, to make it look nicer instead of just a Word document, and also to make a brochure.
Yeah.
But we have somebody in our office now who, like, is doing all marketing stuff, so I thought maybe that would be something we could do internally instead of trying to send
We
it
have a
out to
huge
somebody,
amount of
because
money.
it's a small
Yeah.
project, right? Like, it's not, we don't need to hire some big marketing firm.
We have a huge amount of money that we have in town in the marketing
That's what I was thinking,
So-
plus our own staff time, so both, like, so worst case scenario, we could go into the advertising line,
So financially, there's nothing,
Yeah.
it's marketing, you can
Right.
do it.
right,
And
but
you
I
don't-
just didn't
you
wanna
shouldn't
spend
charge it
money
to-
without, talking to the
Well,
chair
no,
about
it's
it.
in marketing, I think it's consistent, you can mention it, I suggest you mention it at the next board meeting.
Yep.
But don't put it in the administrative staff line, would be my recommendation. Put it in the marketing line with a notation that if it's internal staff, it's gonna cost us a lot less, but, you know,
It's still
presumably the same
I
quality,
mean, you gotta
perhaps
use
the
it
same
for
quality.
marketing,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
But I
I
wanted,
think it makes sense,
Yeah.
you're creating a product, it's just that you're creating it in-house versus outsourcing it, and you have the money.
And the
there.
extra time can be put into that marketing line.
yeah, so I wanted to talk to the chair before spending
Yep,
money,
sure.
because I can't make that call.
Yep, yep, okay, helpful.
Um,
Anything else in the financials?
No, so the Rhinebeck CD has come due, and then we were gonna re-up it, but that's not for June. That was July, but, if you recall, the only thing we could do to save money is I pushed all that money back over to Bank of Greene County into the checking account, because the Bank of Greene County checking account rate was higher
Higher
than
than the money.
any other account anywhere else,
That's
so.
crazy.
I left enough for the year
Mhm.
in M&T, but then put the excess in
Okay.
Baker Green County.
And we had a long discussion about that.
Yeah, for our
It-
.00
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
rate, it's
crazy.
so bad.
It is bad, I mean, the rates, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that looks good.
So there's nothing really different there. Might wanna decide the AR aging report on page 10. Amthor still obviously hasn't paid their annual fee, their late fee, and also their CPA fee. The CPA, we,
So, I'm
the
sorry, Rose, is that equal to 1,600 we're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay,
the CPA fee was not charged to you because we didn't have anything to review because they didn't send us anything. But they're supposed to send us documents and then, pay the fee, but none of that was done, and I don't know what you wanna do about it. RBW owes us money for the escrow, for Loki Brill, and that, hadn't been paid at closing. So I'm going to touch base again.
so that was supposed to be paid at closing and they didn't.
Right, they didn't have the invoice to get it paid at closing. They paid everything else, but then,
Okay, when was the last time
Loki
you
Brill.
heard from them about it?
July, and they weren't actually doing any construction until maybe in August. But they haven't, as far as I know, nothing's been done still. But I will reach out to them.
Okay. I mean, it's, within the it's just 31 to 30 days, but the,
As of June 30th, yeah.
but, Amthor,
Amthor is an issue, yeah.
You know what, in my opinion, funny, you're not gonna get any money out of them. We just write it off, it's not worth, in my opinion, suing. And just make it known that we don't ever wanna deal with them again.
Yeah, I know Rick and I talked about when we talked about the budget, because it obviously affected the numbers, and it's like, it's a hard space to be in, because it's not a lot of money, right? But not necessarily worth suing, but then the only other issue is if everyone decided that they weren't going to pay.
Yeah.
So that's the hard
Yeah,
part.
that's the whole thing.
However, we have nothing to hold over him
Yeah,
for.
that's right, yeah.
Other people who don't pay, we can pull their inducement.
Have
Well,
we- have
Amthor
we-
has still not refinanced their bond.
And unfortunately, that's on them, not on us. We can't even pull that from what we've been told by our attorney. So we're stuck.
did Joe send, when was the last time Joe sent them anything? It's been,
I tried to get an update from him for each board meeting, but I didn't get one this board meeting with him being out sick. Because I check in on all three of them, because all three of them are still not done.
And I think our discussion that we had financially is if Joe can get the bond pulled by the bond holder, we would do that, but that didn't seem to be,
and that was really our only potential recourse in terms of,
that was our only recourse.
other than never doing business with them
Right.
again, I see. Right, we're gonna chase 16.
So in my mind, it's not worth any more aggravation.
Yeah, we've sent them the bill every month.
And even, you know what, charge it off would be my recommendation.
Okay, so then that would, you recommend it to the board?
Yeah.
For the
Jay, what do you think?
I don't like setting a precedent like that.
Right.
I really have a problem with that.
Just remember, you do have something to hold over everybody else's head. You don't pay, and you do some, these guys, there's nothing, it was let go for so long. And every year, they've been a problem reporting. And we had something to hold over them before, as I recall, now we have nothing.
Do they have property? Do they have buildings? You could put a lien on their property.
We
That's
put
a
a
very
mechanics
inexpensive
lien.
thing to do. Just put a lien on their property, that's done, then it's there in the future.
Do
They
you have,
can't
do you have
sell
to
their
go to small
property.
claims court for that?
No, you just can do it right here in the county office
Can
building.
we put a mechanics lien if we're not a
You'll have to check
contractor?
with Joe.
Well, you have to check with Joe,
The
You know,
county,
you,
but
that's a good idea.
and then it's done, and
Yeah,
they can't
you
sell
don't
their
get-
building.
you don't get the money immediately, but it's on his,
It's there.
it's
Well,
there.
yeah, you don't get the money immediately, but it's there and they're gonna have to deal with it one way or another
Right.
eventually, so that's up to them.
They can't refinance, if you know,
Yeah.
not
That's
anything.
almost a county clerk question or a Joe question, I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll ask, I'll find out.
Okay.
Super, that's a good idea for you.
The, if, should I, so we won't meet again for another quarter. If we can do it, that'll be your recommendation.
Yes, I think
Do
so.
we wanna make a, but if we can't, then we would recommend that we write it off, or no?
That's what
I
I
mean, I don't know what other recourse other than that.
Well, because you have to close it out, right?
Yeah, I
So
wanna
the
know,
closing out is the issue.
like writing it off, but I
Yeah.
can't write it off unless the board approves it. So we
Right.
just need you guys to make a motion for whatever the recommendation is.
We'd take a vote, the board takes a vote on it, I think.
Hold on for a second. So our step one is, we wanna put a lien against it. If we can't do that, then we end up, we have to write it off.
Yep.
Okay. And that's what we'll send to the board. So, can you make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we either put a lien on their property, or we essentially have to write it off, but we have to have board approval to do that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, anything else with the financials?
The next page is it printed weird, it's on 2 pages, is the escrow account. So it's just to show you who's got money in there, who's negative, who's not. There's nothing really exciting. Page
Okay, I
11
got it.
and 12.
Oh, here's the picture.
Yeah, page 11, there's 2 pages of course.
Yeah, got it.
So I think like the biggest one, I think Kingstonian was negative the most, but that's because that was before we changed the escrow amount from being 1,000, we changed it to 2,000. So now that shouldn't be an issue going forward.
I just wanted to read this one, it's on 2 pages.
Yeah.
Romeo Kia is negative $173.
So we go to the closing for Kingstonian, again, financially, you gotta make sure that all the invoices are there, because the Loki Brill invoice for the Kingstonian
Yeah, it's going to be
is
huge.
gonna be big,
Yeah.
and I don't wanna be footing that in
No,
our funds,
Yep.
so.
I know. Unfortunately, RBW happened without notice while I was on vacation.
Okay.
So
That'll do it.
that's it, that's what we're doing.
All right. Peter, how are we doing there on page? Just talk about it.
Yep, so we actually owe her money, but I'll take that out of like the escrow for, so it'll all be trued up in the end
Okay.
at closing. We'll take it out of the escrow for what she'll have to pay Loki Brill as
What do we-
well.
What do we owe one?
Aferia, $300, nothing, that's RTH, is Aferia.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mhm.
Yep, okay.
And then.
Just a journal entries.
Yeah, we just make it a habit, just so you know what entries were being made that aren't just writing checks and deposits. So the only thing that happened was, because of the way I had to invoice the RBW stuff, it went to, project admin fees and it needed to go through miscellaneous fees, so I just reclassed that.
Okay.
And then the grants, obviously we talked about, so it's $25 worth of stuff that was moved around, but just so you know what we're
Thank
moving
you.
around.
Yep.
And then the full general ledger is on the next few pages, and that's year to date. So you can see all the transactions and all the accounts, there's nothing exciting there.
In this case, exciting, we don't want to say.
Exciting we don't want to say
A
now.
lot of this is all the PPE. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of checks.
A lot of checks, yeah. And actually, the bulk of it didn't even go out of the IDA in 2021, so that's nothing out of here. Yeah, and then it goes back to normal. Yeah. Yeah, back to normal.
What's the 75,000? What is that? For Ulster NH Realty LLC.
They paid us the $75,000 that they owed us. It's supposed to be paid January 1st, and I believe they paid it partway through February, right?
2-3.
That was
That was their closing fee from 2020, and we agreed to let them break it out.
Rose, just a, and I'm sorry, Chair, I know I'm not on the audit committee, but as the CFO, I'd actually, given the sensitivity created by another IDA and the shenanigans that went on there, and almost, we've had separate, you and I, separate meetings to go over the budgets. But I'd almost like to, it's good to have a couple set of buys. I'd like to go through this, sit down with you,
Sure, yeah, any questions, I'm happy to answer.
just so, and or with Diane, you just set, literally to scan every item, just to get an idea of the flow.
Yep.
Just so I can say as the CFO.
Yeah, I mean, the
that
audit, when they do the audit at year end, it's only picking and choosing, it's
They
not,
only do a sample.
yeah, although
I
last
just
year
want to
the
be able
sample
to
was
say as a CFO,
horrendous, cause of all the grants.
and I, by the way, I don't have signing authority on the checks, and
Right.
that's probably appropriate, you don't wanna give me all this authority.
Right.
But I wanna be able to say, yeah, I know every, quote unquote, every transaction going through, so I think I'd like to do that. And since I'm retired and always looking for something, but I would like to,
Sure.
when appropriate, I don't know in the terms of your flow of work, during the month,
Is
when
it
to do
easier
that.
to do it, do you wanna do it quarterly going forward, or
No,
semi-annually?
it's too much quarter,
Like, what are you thinking?
I was thinking each month to break it down into smaller chunks.
Okay, each month, yeah, once you go through this packet, each month there's nothing. I don't know that you even.
Okay, then do it, let's do it.
Yeah, I was good,
Okay.
yeah, there's really no transactions
Works for you,
anymore.
Rose?
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's do it quarterly.
Okay. Alright, Faye, any questions with
Nope.
the financials?
Nope.
Anything else, Rose?
Good.
Okay, motion to, approve the second quarter financial review.
I'll make that motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Page 30, next agenda item is the annual site visits, year-end reporting. What do you have for us here, Rose?
So, it's hard to believe, it's already time to start talking about,
It is very hard to believe.
I know, annual reporting. There've been like two schools of thought on when we should send this stuff out, because they can't even get the information to us for the most part until January, until after year end. So I know at one point, like, the board had talked about sending it in October before the holidays, but then, you know, Randall and I discussed it again, and it was like, well, if you send it that early, that's so early, they can't even do anything with it. It'll be put aside and not thought about. So we've been sending it at the beginning of December, typically. We send it out and then we do our site visits afterwards, and then I go over the fact that we sent it to them and everything that's in it when I do the site visits. So this is what we sent last year. And I need you to know if there were any changes that you would wanna make to it. And I thought, you know, we'll meet again probably in in October or
Yeah.
so, but it was good to start thinking
No,
about
it's
it if there
good.
was
Yeah.
anything.
Is there anything that you saw that maybe should be added because you're the one dealing with this all the time?
It's hard, so I don't know what to do. So like page 32, people don't answer the average hourly wage question. It's hard enough to get them to fill out the packet as is. That doesn't mean I don't think we should take it out. I'm just saying
I'm
it's
sorry,
been
which one is difficult
an
to get?
issue. Page 32, the average hourly wage at
The
the
second
bottom,
column,
second column.
Why is that difficult? They have the numbers.
I just don't wanna do it. I don't know what to say.
okay, I understand that, but it isn't, in our grid, don't we give different credit depending upon the average
Yes, we
annual?
do.
Yes, we do, that's
So they
what I'm
have to
saying.
fill it out. And the ones in the past, they were not
That's
good,
the problem.
but going forward,
Yeah, our more current projects have been better about it and more proactive. But it's hard when you've not been doing something for so long and nobody did anything about it to
Do we
try to
have-
get them on board.
So maybe
you know?
what we try to do that, if there's some specific things that we've seen that have been challenging, like the average, we cue that in our letter to them, that we are going to be paying particular attention, and it's important, you know, as we've been tightening up our policies at the average, just let them know, give them a heads up.
I don't remember if on the ABO form, you know, the online form that we have to do, the parish point, do they ask for that figure?
Sort of, they ask for it as a one-time question, like what is the promised average hourly wage? Or
For
the
each
average,
fund.
I'm sorry, not hourly, what is the promised average salary? And so it's a one-time question, they don't ask like if it's still happening properly, but we should be checking on
But
that,
they ask
because
it for
like
every
you said,
project.
we're checking on their construction labor because they got points for it, we should be checking on wages
Yeah,
if
because
they
we're-
got points for it,
Right, 'cause
right?
we talk about prevailing wage, how do we know that? I mean, management is a big bucket,
Right.
and on the average, if people are
Right.
making prevailing wage, and more so, frankly, in the skilled and unskilled and other
Yeah.
category.
So,
Did they give you a reason why they just,
No.
or they just don't fill it?
no, it's hard
Okay.
enough to get the rest of the packet, but
Let alone a reason why.
Well, maybe on this, you should emphasize this must be filled out.
well, the
That's what
other
I'm saying,
thing
if
we
can,
had
like,
talked
highlight
about
things like
in,
this that have to be done.
governance was doing like a training in maybe November or something with our projects, all new projects must attend, and then like old projects, we would strongly recommend they attend with like reporting issues, because some people do have like honest questions, they don't understand some of the questions that are supposed to be in here. It's not, people aren't necessarily doing it
Right.
belligerently, right?
Right.
It's a little bit
So
confusing.
governance make that decision, that that's what we would do, or was that just an idea that was?
You know what, doing training because one or two people are
It's
screwing
not
it
one or
up.
two,
Oh, it isn't?
no,
And is this only a paper application or is it online?
it's just paper, we mail them the paper.
Oh, okay, because
And then we end
online
up
would be
usually
so much
having an
easier
email
because
also.
they wouldn't be able to go forward unless they filled it out. You know, like
That's true.
in an online application, you can't move forward unless you fill out certain key things.
So I wonder if like, we might have to pay, but it might be worth it, but like Survey Monkey or something like that, it's minimal, it's not a lot, but maybe we should pay for the $15 or $50 or whatever it is to do it through Survey Monkey or something like
I
that,
think
so
it's a
that
great
it's,
idea.
It would be
it's a
easy,
good idea, Fran.
it'd be easier for you to deal with it if it was online,
Yeah,
in terms of compiling the numbers, wouldn't it?
yeah, I mean, right, there wouldn't be the handwriting issues, there wouldn't be that people
Yeah.
aren't filling out certain things.
Right.
One of the other problems we had this year, and it was a new question, but still, and it was, I think it was your idea, Diane, we asked if they've been involved in any litigation.
Yeah.
And I would say 90% of them came back without the question answered.
Yeah.
So then we had to go back to them and say, yes, you submitted your packet, but it's not whole, you have to answer this question.
So that would eliminate all that.
So, go back to the question, so in governance, did, I can't remember, did we actually approve that we would move forward with people would have to come to the training?
Yeah.
Because I know it's gonna happen, they can't move forward and she's gonna get a bazillion phone calls because they can't move out of the box.
Yeah.
So, I mean, until people
So,
get
I mean,
accustomed
could
to it, I
also-
think the training should go, I think the training and
Yeah.
this idea that Pay has is excellent.
Or
Between
a
those two
Q&A
things.
section
Yeah.
with this
Or FAQs.
application.
you know, an FAQ session,
Exactly.
section in the.
Where you can go back to, okay,
But I do
Sometimes-
think some people would honestly appreciate it and just, I'm not looking to do a full day, maybe an hour max to be able to go through. It's not really I don't think it's even a waste of their time because they've had so many questions on what you're supposed to fill out and what you're not, and people still, they said it, I would say most of them are wrong, and it's not bad wrong, it's just like, people who don't have pilots, tell me what pilot payments they made. Because it's what taxes they paid, so like,
oh, yeah.
they're
yeah.
all wrong. So it makes sense to do some kind of training. and
I'm
then-
wondering too, like some of these online applications, they'll have like a question mark if people don't know, so they just highlight it.
Right.
And they'll define what that is or what exactly, or where to go to find the information. It's a little bit more work on the front end and it
Yeah,
might
but
be a
you
little more
use it every
money,
year, right?
right?
So-
So you might even wanna really put together a form that is really more intuitive, has the information right there that they can click, in addition to a 1
That's a
hour.
great
Well, we
idea.
have someone who does for our town, who can design the whole format and all those question marks and where they go and how they stream into whatever. And he does it for our town paperwork,
Yeah.
our town online stuff.
Does he work for the town?
He does it freelance.
Again, we could stretch the definition, I think, enough to say that could go in the marketing budget.
Even if not marketing, there's a budgeted
There's a
line
training.
for other contractual services, isn't
Yeah.
there?
Isn't there training or training? part
That
of
would
the
make life a lot
budget?
easier.
Yeah,
Is it in the veteran?
well, there isn't much there, cause it was for us. Hold on, let me go to the email. So, contracts for other services, there's $35,000 available. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we could do that, let me look at it and like, wrap my head around it,
Yeah,
and then come back. But this is why I wanted to bring it to this meeting before October's
Yeah.
meeting,
Right.
so that we could really
Okay, that sounds good.
dig into it more.
Agreed.
As for questions, I don't know that there are any more questions that you really need to add, to get the information you need. The hardest part is getting people to send all the attachments they're supposed to send, and also to fill out all the questions.
Not filling out questions, we take care of them.
Right. Right. So I will look into the Survey Monkey. I'll also see if it's something we can do easily on our website directly, if not through I'll see whatever makes the most sense.
I can also give you his telephone number if you want to reach out to him.
Yeah, who is it?
His name's Eric.
Here's a silly, I don't know if this is an issue, but like we have the shareholder owner, member of the company sign, what if there's multiples? Is it adequate just to have the one signature?
Yeah, we just asked for one, but also that's not something, that's new. We did that last year, that it needed to be, and that wasn't necessarily done either.
Okay,
I just don't, I don't know.
Yeah. it has to be signed.
That'd be signed by an officer of the corporation.
I know who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's very
Okay.
smart.
The person who's doing it is generally the administrative assistant, I believe,
His father used to work at Ulster.
but it should also be signed by an officer of the corporation.
Yeah. Alright, so we do not need any motions or anything, but we have a game plan for you in terms of exploring some of these options.
Yeah, yeah, I think those are all
So
good.
what essentially we're saying is, put the form online, don't complete boxes, can't move on, so that way we're capturing all the required information. Make it intuitive with some boxes for answering questions, explaining what we're asking for.
Yep.
And then out of governance, new projects for an hour training.
Yeah, March, the comptroller sends out a survey, ahead of her doing her annual phone call with us.
Yeah.
To check in and like, they use a survey like that online that you have to answer, so I could ask them,
Who's
their
that,
office
Marsh
too.
Gallagher?
Yeah.
Yeah, comptroller. Alright, great. Faye, is there anything else in here any questions that we don't have in, things that you don't think we need, or?
No, I think it looks, it's pretty set, it's been being used, so it's
It's tweaked it.
adequate, yeah.
Any-
And last year, we went through all these things and tweaked a lot of this.
And the timing seemed to work too, right? Better last year. In terms of when you sent things out and then the actual visits.
Yeah, they did a lot better.
Yeah.
Because this was the second year of having late fees. The first year, it was a lot. This year was better. But it was still pretty high. And it's kind of a bummer. So, like, I had talked to Dutchess County IDA, their CFO, because their CFO is the one who handles all of this stuff. And she said she saw that we imposed late fees and couldn't believe that we had to do that because they don't have this issue. But the difference is they've been doing this all along with people, A, and B, she's a full-time employee, and her full-time job is, as CFO, is to also deal with the compliance. So she literally goes out to projects multiple times during the year, checks in with them during the year, so there's always the communication. Our projects, of course, we try to, we'll touch base, but they prefer not to talk to me during the year, and it's bad enough with some of them to talk to them at year end.
Some of this too is like moving forward, like we're putting in more policies or tightening up things. And I'm wondering if there's a way to create a new culture, if you will, in
Right.
terms of the relationship between projects and the IEA. So maybe this is an opportunity to start thinking about how we cultivate the relationships and how we work with
Right.
them and communicate to them and minimize, it may be more time up front, but it would probably minimize time spent over the life of the project that you're dealing with chasing.
Yeah,
money
because
and
we're
more
the
people to
good
do
guys
things.
when they're going after getting what they want, and then we're the bad guys for the rest of the time.
Yeah, so it's definitely a lot better with the newer projects because it's, you're right, we're setting the tone
Yeah.
up front.
Yeah.
But it is, I feel like there's probably nothing we're gonna be able to do to prepare some of the stuff from the older projects. Projects that have been here for 20 years and have never had to do it, they're still gonna drag their feet. Yes.
So, just for the sake of discussion, one of the things we talked about too with site visits was encouraging all board members to go with you, to have insight into our projects and have a good understanding. I think we should once again recommend that as many board members do that as possible. And I'm also wondering,
I think that
That
should be
was on page
mandatory
30, by the
for
way,
the board.
also.
I think it should be
Sorry.
mandatory for the
We
board
skipped-
members to at least visit 2 sites or something, because I think it's a really good way to get some knowledge about some of these
All of
projects.
you that did that felt the same way.
Yeah.
I don't think any of you that sat through them felt it was a waste.
It was not a waste, it was
Um,
interesting, and it
It
was
was very
also,
helpful to
then
understand
you're,
where they're coming from.
right, and you're understanding the dynamics of how they feel and, the project itself, the scope of what is going on. And a lot of these are old projects that we weren't a part of, that are
Right.
still in existence that we don't really had nothing to do with.
And then, so on page 30, we skipped it because we're talking about the annual report, and it was on a back page.
Yeah.
But this is what we asked when we went this year. I mean, we also talked clearly further than this, because some of the site visits last an hour, because there's a lot to talk about, more, some of the people, it was, difficult asking, have you had any notable successes, when the answer is, yeah, my business is still open.
Right.
Because COVID was so bad
Right.
for
probably
some
have
of
the
the
COVID
businesses.
question here.
And we did ask that as well, and,
Yep.
and I said that I think that's absolutely a notable success, I didn't know if you guys had any questions, or if you wanted to change this at all, also.
I think I was just looking, I had circled the COVID question, I think it's still applicable to
I
this past
think
year.
it is, yeah.
We're not out of this, and we were,
We
out
could
of
have,
vaccine.
we could ask questions about it, and it kind of ad lib it depending upon how the conversation goes, but, ability to hire people, expansion plans, are we gonna get another request from them at some point in time, or looking to expand? Make them understand, everything we talk about is confidential, because
Yeah. Do you think-
businesses don't like to talk about a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff.
Do you think we get at that? We have a question about obstacles or challenges related to employment.
Yeah, I remember we did, and we did it by phone, I think, in all cases last year
It
because
was
of
all Zoom,
COVID.
yeah.
There were questions that we asked, I asked about expansion and or, hiring was more around the COVID, you're able to get people, you're able to keep them.
Yeah, we asked them all that, and then it also, honestly, the conversation ends up flowing naturally.
Yes.
But this is like the questions I answer and then I write my extra notes around the side.
Yeah,
I think that maybe instead of saying, has the project been negatively affected by COVID, you just say, has the project been affected by COVID? Has your project been affected by COVID? Because there's certain businesses that actually did better because of home-based people and
The
whatever.
manufacturing businesses I found very interesting were not affected at all.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
so.
they're on demand.
it was the hospitality.
I'm gonna come back to the site visits and this idea of the board members being required to do 2 site visits. How many current projects do we have?
About 35.
Okay, that'll do it. And then I guess my other question is in terms of, you know, Duchess has a full-time CFO who's visiting and, you know, all the time. But I'm also wondering if we should put in some kind of, at least once a quarter, we're touching each site 2 times a year. And maybe it's a scheduled Zoom call or a phone call and not just showing up. Maybe we do it 6 months at the end of the year.
Doesn't ABO recommend twice a year?
No, they recommend.
Well,
once
why couldn't we do at each board meeting, pick a project and do a 10-minute Zoom call with them? Or something.
Well, they
board?
can't, yeah,
I don't think that the whole board would be as.
you would have to do it in executive
I
session
mean, that
if they're
well,
gonna
that would
talk
be
about.
touching base with them, you know, in a way of touching base with them and the whole board seeing what's going on.
Here's the only, I don't know, I think if we do it, not to formalize it so much, it's about creating just a rapport relationship so that when you get to the end year visit, I don't know. I understand what you're saying, but I think more
Some
just like
familiarity
this is kind of like informal
Right.
touchstone, you just say, hey, and it's not based on any requirement of filling out a report or an official site visit, I think that would be helpful, so.
Yeah, I think a Zoom call makes sense. I don't know I know last year we had hoped to not do Zoom visits, to actually go out, but it obviously was not a comfortable
Right.
situation last December, and I don't know what's gonna happen this December as well,
So why don't we, one
unfortunately.
virtual touch point in between
So I'd
somewhere
like to see
also.
it, okay, but too late for this year, not too late for this year, I don't know.
I wouldn't say we're gonna be
Too
able to
late
do it this year, but I think moving forward, we should think about that. Do these types of recommendations then go to governance?
No, I don't think it has to, it's not a policy, right, our policy is that
Well,
we do
would be
it
a
at least.
policy that we would require board members to do 2 site visits a year and also to participate in 1 virtual. Yes, it would be.
If that is, yeah, so
Yeah.
right now it's the enforcement of agency projects policy, was being amended it'll be amended at the next governance committee meeting. But we just amended it because it used to say our policy was to do it every other year, even though we had been doing it annually. So we put now to do it at least once a year is the policy, but I mean, we could still do it without changing the policy. It's just good practice.
So that would be not going to governance then.
Yeah, we need to go to governance.
Nor would we have to get a board approval that everybody was gonna commit to go.
If you were gonna do that, you
I
might
think we
want
should,
to.
I think we should make it a requirement of the board. I mean, if we
I
don't,
definitely do.
frankly, if we don't, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Don't we have a requirement, I forget, didn't we make a requirement for attendance?
Yeah, you can't miss more than 5.
We just did that.
So this is proactive as opposed to,
Yeah.
I think the board, 2 visits?
Yep.
That's fine.
I think
And then I
once.
like the idea of a virtual call in the middle of the year, May, June.
So would the 2 visits, so would you do 2 visits in June and 2 visits in December for the board? What are you thinking for?
No, I think what I'm saying is whenever we do the year end, wherever you schedule them,
For this year, yeah.
you know, the board has, you know, you get a schedule out and each board member has to go with you on 2, whether it's virtual or in person.
Yeah, they're all in person, or they're
Well-
supposed to be in person,
Last year we did,
but we couldn't.
right, that's what I'm saying, if we can't
But
this year, we would
If
do
it is in person, then that is more of a problem also for trying to schedule. Because driving,
Problems are meant to be solved,
Yes,
so
I mean,
let's
there's
just go
30,
forward.
there's 30 projects.
Right.
And that means I gotta be able to be available at
It's
2
not,
in
but
the
it's not,
morning.
yeah, right, but
I
the
think we
issue
could
is like,
make it work.
but we try to do like the Marlboro projects on one day, do you
So-
know what I mean? And like, that schedule might not work with you, that works with the Marlboro projects.
Right, but I can go on to another project that's not in Marlboro.
Just make up a
Or you
list
could
of
go
all,
to another,
Yeah.
board member.
Yeah,
make a list of
available.
30 projects, you get the projects who agree with dates, send the
Yeah.
list out to everybody
and
and say
everybody
which ones come
self-selects
in.
the
Yeah,
2
do
they're
That's-
going to.
Do the monkey calendar, or whatever you call it thing.
Yeah,
But
the,
Qualtrics, you can use, well, whatever you
it
use.
should,
but-
yeah. I mean, we can certainly try, I'm just saying, I just know how difficult it is to get the meeting scheduled with the projects alone.
Well, you do that, and then it's our responsibility as board members to insert ourselves into those scheduled meetings.
Now, last year, what you did, you sent out the dates,
It's
you sent
easier
out,
because it was Zoom.
I know that,
Yeah.
so, but this is part of the job.
Yeah, I don't disagree, I
And if
just,
it doesn't happen, then
and you
somebody-
wording it that way makes it easier in my head, is,
Yeah,
right,
it's
like
not
it's,
that you have to accommodate our calendars, it's,
Right.
your primary focus is to schedule the end of the year visit with the project.
Right.
Yep.
And then it's our responsibility as a board member to look at all the dates you have set up and self-select 2 that we're going to.
Okay.
It's on us to do that.
okay, yeah, that seems,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
That's why I would like to make it a formal part of what we do, a requirement.
it doesn't require any more work from you except getting those dates back from the board members.
Yeah, so would you amend the compensation and attendance policy, cause it would be on that, right, like that would be where to put that you're doing it. That you're requiring, you wouldn't create a new policy.
If it were me, I'd say no.
No,
So,
what?
no, you don't need to amend the policy, this is just good practice.
Well, if you wanna make it a requirement, that's what I'm
It's a
saying,
good practice.
right, so then it's not gonna be required.
And, you know, the chair would presumably, just like there was no negative if you miss more than 5 board meetings, the chair would be made aware of it, the process goes to the chair. And then, you know, the chair certainly probably has a discussion with the legislature every year when we get reappointed, so
But we do
it
make
would,
it a
it would
requirement.
affect that. I would just do, it's good practice that we have the board members attending too.
And not, so then it's not a requirement.
You could, but then it's almost like, we're not dealing with school kids, you know.
But we do make it it is a requirement. We did make it formalized that we have to attend 5 meetings, so we're not.
You can't miss 5
You
meetings.
can't miss 5 meetings, so I mean, if, I don't know. We're not school kids, but we also, you know, are making a commitment to serve on the IDA, and there's requirements that come with that. Right. And these projects are important, and what we're doing is
So,
important.
you know what, then make it suggested we make it a policy.
We should be familiar with what we're dealing
Yeah.
with.
And I would like to think that people would just do best practice, but I don't, I think last year we also recommended this, and
And there
not
was
many folks
people who did not show
participated
up.
virtually.
No, not every board member
No,
participated, and some participated a lot.
Right, and it was good practice, but that's, didn't turn out to, have the numbers that we would have hoped for.
Okay, I withdraw my objection to it. Let's put, I don't wanna hold this up. So let's kick it around in governance and maybe we should make a strong
So ask
recommendation to do it.
governance,
That's what I was trying to get at, this is
governance
go to
and time and
governance.
attendance policy.
Yeah.
Or compensation, whatever it is, yeah.
Compensation.
It's a
Compensation?
It's a compensation policy.
Oh my
They should
God.
take that word out.
What do we get?
It's that you don't get compensated.
Right, we should definitely take
Why
that
don't we
word
call it
out.
non-compensation?
Yeah, right,
Right.
yeah, there you go. Okay, and then you like these questions as they are?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're great. I do like the one that, they
Yeah,
suggested taking out the
take
word
this out.
negatively affected.
Okay.
Okay. So this is all gonna go to governance, the requirement.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Alright. Any other questions? Anything else around this, the year-end reporting? Nope. Thank you, Rose.
Yep.
Alright, so review of current policies, on page 36, there's the policy respecting uniform criteria for evaluation of projects. So remind us, Rose, where are we with this?
the projects that are left here on the agenda were the four that were four of what's left that governance sent over to audit to review instead of governance reviewing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mike.
Yes. So this is a required policy, ABO requires it, that we have a uniform policy for evaluating all of the projects that come before us. And I didn't know if anybody had anything to add or subtract.
Was there anything that came out of governance that we were
No.
wanting to change, add, revise, add?
Not for this one, no.
Well, couldn't we add additional criteria, supporting lower income residents?
Where does the community benefit piece go into this? Are we talking about community
Yeah,
benefit?
I mean, the community benefit is gonna be part of a changed matrix, a changed UTEP. So it certainly could be part of what we're evaluating, but I feel like maybe we can't, maybe we then, like you're saying, maybe we actually can't even touch this policy. Maybe it makes sense to wait, cause there's nothing pressing. Maybe it makes sense to wait until after we revise the UTEP and the matrix and then come back and look at this again, right? Cause
Yeah.
unless there's something that anybody said was really bad
There's-
that needed to
There's
change.
two things with this, in my opinion. One is the community benefit we've been talking about, right, up to the point, so that has to go in the matrix. And then the other is, at some point, before the end of the year, I would propose that we also have something around housing.
Housing and solar projects as well, or green
Housing,
energy.
solar, and community benefit need to be baked into this before the end of the year.
So, and so I think maybe we table this until after the UTEP and matrix are changed,
Yeah.
right? Cause we're saying, there's nothing really pressing, and it makes sense to wait until we change the UTEP and the matrix and decide what we're evaluating.
So that has to go through governance.
The UTEP and matrix, yes, yeah, that would have been on the agenda.
I think you need to announce to the public why we're not meeting, we're not doing governance after this is all over.
Alright, so what we're saying out of the audit is housing, community benefit, and solar need to be added to the matrix and then to this, ideally before, at the end of the year. And
Oh,
that'll fit
community
into our, scheduling and training around housing, et cetera, as a board, so, okay. Alright, and then move it to governance. Okay. Okay, so,
Well, do you wanna
Faye,
move
does that
this
make sense to
to
you?
governance, or you mean move it back
Yeah.
to governance, or?
Well, I think if the matrix has to be changed and then this, it's gonna have to go back to governance, right?
I don't know that this has to, I think it makes sense for it to stay in audit because it's like how we're evaluating projects. Either way,
That's how we're auditing projects,
yeah,
but we wanna add some things to it.
Yeah, we may
Yeah.
wanna
So
add
we're
based
gonna
on that,
go
so I don't wanna change something if there's things that we just haven't thought about.
right, but I'm just saying, I don't think the policy has to go back.
No,
To
no, no, no,
governance.
no,
Oh,
no, no,
yeah,
no, I'm sorry,
okay.
no.
Yeah, so, right, we're waiting on governance, and when that's done, and then we can come back to us, so.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing, okay. Say anything else?
Not on that, no, I agree with all what you just said.
Rick, anything you'd like to share?
Thank you.
Alright, thank you. Page 38, policy, code of ethics. This came back to us from governance.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was something more good for audit than for governance. One of the things like we changed is that anybody signing a contract for services worth $5,000 or more annually will sign the code of ethics, or will go over and sign the code of ethics, to just affirm from another point of view that there's no conflict with any board member.
Okay.
But,
Gifts is 75, that's set by other entities, so that's
Yeah.
just standard practice.
did kind of wonder if this should be something that is signed annually. You know, you all sign your fiduciary responsibility acknowledgement form, whatever, it's some long
And we
name.
do a code of ethics, don't we do a code of
We
ethics?
don't, well, you did, because you were new. But this is something, so the distribution of code of ethics, it's supposed to be provided to each member before you become a member. So before you were appointed, I
Yeah.
sent it to you
Yes, like,
to sign, but maybe it's, I think, a good idea to like sign it annually. If you're signing the other form annually, what's the big deal? And I think it's good to keep it fresh in your mind,
Yeah, to
right?
review it.
For some reason, I had in my head that this was one that was done annually, and I've gone back and checked several times because I keep feeling
so I'm
that
interested,
way.
did you put the reaffirmed, is that why you put reaffirmed?
No, so it was reaffirmed in January. When every January we reaffirm all of our policies.
Oh, I say not the person
Not
signing
a
that I
person,
reaffirmed that I.
yeah, it was
yeah.
reaffirmed by the board that this
I
is
like
the
the
code of
idea
ethics.
of the board members
And a signature.
reaffirming or
Yeah,
signing. or-
yeah, signing. So when I send you, you know, the other things, you know, it's not a big deal, just sign this also, but it's good to have it fresh in your
Yeah.
mind. So
Okay.
distribution of code of ethics, annually. Sign and return.
Okay.
So that'll change this policy, because it changes the distribution information.
Yep.
So you have a motion to recommend.
So I'll make a motion to sign this code of ethics policy annually by each board member.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright,
Cool.
any other questions, comments on the policy? Rick, anything?
No, I'm just, you know what, yeah, I'm just reading number C, representation before any agency for contingency fee. I don't know if that's, you know how in the other IDA, what happened in Orange County, they actually had somebody working for them as a consultant who was also sitting on the board. I don't know that this covers that.
No, this is just, you can't get paid to approve a project, right?
We need to have something that just says you can't work, if you're on the board, you can't also work for the board. I would rather work for the IDA compensated. You
Is
can't work as a, you can't work,
Hey, say this
The
again,
compensation policy might say that. Hold on one second.
okay,
but go through your train of thought again, Rick, sorry.
say that again, I'm
Can you
sorry.
go through your train of thought again?
My train of thought was, I didn't think C covers the situation that happened in Orange County, where a board member was also a consultant.
Right,
To the project.
right. Well, to
No,
everything.
that's the
To the
project, that'd be
idea.
bad enough.
Yeah.
Was a consultant to,
I got you, I know, okay.
I can't think of the fellows, I don't wanna mention.
Yeah, I got it.
But it was a consultant to somebody who was already getting paid by the board, so the money was flowing from the board to this other person, who was then paying a member of the board to consult for him.
Got it.
I mean, that's,
So maybe that would be something you could further tune in the compensation policy, just like the time and attendance when it goes back to governance, because the compensation policy says generally, members of the Ulster County Industrial Development Agency shall serve without compensation. Reimbursement. Members may be allowed reasonable advancement or reimbursement of expenses incurred in the performance of the regular duties as specified in section 858 of the Act. Members may not be compensated for rendering services to the agency in any capacity other than member unless such other compensation is reasonable and is allowable under the provisions of section 858 of the Act. So I think it's covered in the compensation.
what act is 858, is that the
Yeah,
general municipal law?
it probably is.
It's just,
Yeah,
It seems to me it's
I
covered now.
think it's covered.
yeah,
Okay.
so unless there was an extreme reason, which would be covered by law, then you shouldn't be paid, yeah.
Good catch. Okay. Alright. We have a motion to pass, so, alright, I think we're good. Thank you. Investment and deposit policy, page 40. You have here, Rose.
I looked at this and I don't have anything in particular that needs to be changed.
I didn't have anything
we don't have, strictly speaking, any investments. Well, isn't our bank an investment? No, that's a deposit. So
Right.
we don't do investments because your CFO doesn't believe that we have either the knowledge to do investments.
So we don't own buildings, we don't own anything.
We don't own buildings, we're not
Right.
investing in the stock
Right.
market, so, and then as far as the deposit policy, you know, the collateralizing all the deposits, is a given. It's either covered by FDIC insurance or it's collateralized by treasuries or other acceptable as defined by law, municipal bonds. Is this, Rose, did have a question, is this where we talk about, anywhere in here, who can open accounts, who can close accounts, how many signatories to the accounts, do we do any of that?
This is investment.
I believe that's in the bylaws.
Yeah, so see, that wouldn't be here, would it?
Yeah, I think it's in the bylaws.
Okay. A lot of this applies to IDAs that are, as Faye said, have buildings, have securities,
Yeah.
have received gifts from somebody and collateral there.
Yeah,
all
this is
things
just,
securities.
it's one of those policies we have to have.
Yeah,
Right,
and I
it's
think
part
it's
of the packet.
probably exactly whatever,
Make
is
sure that
defined
we
by
have the
NDA.
collateral, which we do.
Yeah.
All the stuff we,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to make a motion?
Yes,
that
please.
It's good to go,
Okay, so we don't want any changes, we think the policy is fine as written.
that's fine as written.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, page 46, local construction labor policy.
So, I have a problem here.
Not a problem.
Yeah. Mike had specific wording that he wanted for this, but I don't have that.
All right,
Because we had talked about amending the local construction labor policy to also include information like about the community investment agreement and making it a larger thing, but I think we realized that should be its own thing and part of the matrix and the UTEP. So Mike has other wording, I just don't have it for what he wanted in the local construction
all
labor
right, so why don't we table this until after the next governance meeting, we have that language.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. That ends our IDA meeting, the audit committee,
There was,
There's one item on the back page,
local construction
this
policy,
note from,
it's page
was that part of
46.
Dan Baker's thing?
What's that?
I talked to you about this, but it's not on the agenda,
No, it's not on the agenda.
so.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
All right, motion to adjourn,
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
And also, we are scheduled